show. We want to welcome you to Effective Communication, ladies and gentlemen, with the beautiful and awesome and talented Miss LaQuita Parks, ladies and gentlemen. She is the CEO and the founder of Pay Pro V Publishing. Sister Parks, it's all yours.
Hi, thank you so much, Kevin. So today we are here again for another So What's Your Story segment. Today we are talking about effective communication. So I am going to share my screen. Here we go, here we go, here we go. So, what's your story? What's your story? Today's segment, again, effective communication. And I am LaQuita Parks. I am the owner of Pay Pro V Publishing, and Pay Pro V means pain, progress, victory, because we believe without pain, there is no progress, and without progress, there can be no victory. So I help people take their stories from a thought to a realization. So every month we do one of these So What's Your Story segments. Today is effective communication. And in just a moment, I'll introduce my guest. So, but first, I want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors. We cannot do all of what we do without sponsors. Everybody has to have a support group, and we have to effectively communicate that so that people will want to support us. So, I would like to thank Johnny Brown with Legal Shield and Kevin King as our VIP sponsors, along with Lachelle Atkins, America's Supermom, Barbara Beckley, The Diamond Factor, the Yono Clip guys, Bob Mackey and Michael Green, as well as Shaquanda Mitchell with SM Events and Design, and Messy Mommies, our Messy Mommies podcast, and Great Apparel. So thank you guys so very much for your support. And I would be remiss if I did not include Mr. Kevin Vaughn with the MLT Network. Thank you so very much for all of your support. So today, that was our introduction for Pay-Per-View Publishing. So today we're going to talk about effective communication. We're going to recap what we've talked about in the last several months. We started this in January, and then we're going to dive into effective communication, and then we're going to meet our special guest. We have our Army Sergeant, retired Army Sergeant James Parks, and he is near and dear to my heart because he just happens to be my dad. Did you guys get the last name is the same? Parks? Just happened to be my dad. And then we're going to meet the nurse. She's more than a nurse, but I'll let her introduce herself. And that's Regina Pittman. And then our writer, Nicole Scott. So I am so very excited to have them as my special guest. So what's your story? What's Your Story is a monthly series on how to write your story. There are so many ways, so listen guys, everybody has a story. 100% of everybody living or dead has a story. Now, out of the 100% of the people who have a story, not everybody will take the time to write their story. And out of the people who take the time to write their story, only a few of those people will actually publish their stories. So what I want you to know is that just because you have a story doesn't mean you have to publish it. So that's my little commercial. I love that little commercial. It just tells you who we are and what we do with Pay Pro V Publishing. So how do you start your story? You simply start. You just start. So how do you just start? So number one, you set goals. And we talked about this. If you've been following us since January, we've done a segment every month, and we just simply start. So if you have a story, and I know you have a story, and you're trying to figure out what do I do? You just start. You pick up your pen and put it to paper and just start. So you build your confidence. So you just start. You set goals, set realistic goals, and then think positively. You cannot do anything with negative thinking. Negative thinking will keep you stagnated and in your same space for forever. In 5 years, you'll still be saying, I have a story. I want to write my story. So think positively and then acknowledge your why. Why do you want to write your story? Why is it important for you to write your story and share your story? And then retrain your brain, retrain your thinking. And then the last thing you do is take baby steps. So that's how you start writing your story. You simply START, just start. So, how do you effectively communicate your story? So, first of all, you have to be clear on what your story is. In order for you to communicate a story, you have to know what that story is. Now, everybody who has a story, it doesn't have to be a sad story. How you communicate your story is how you communicate your story. Your story can be one of how do you relax. It can be an autobiography. It could be a memoir. It could be a children's book, but it's your story. Okay. So however your story, whatever your story is, you have to make sure that you communicate it effectively because you want your audience to understand what it is you're trying to communicate. Okay. So you have to determine who is your audience. So what I want to do, I want to pause for a moment and I want to introduce, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I want to introduce my guest. So I'm going to start with a retired Army Sergeant, Mr. James Parks. I want him to introduce himself and so I want everybody to introduce themselves first. Tell us who you are and tell us what you do. Okay. So we're going to start with Mr. James Parks. Tell us who you are and what you do.
My name is James Parks, Sergeant, U.S. Army retired, and I'm an activist, so I do many things. I work in the community, excuse me, I work in the community, and I recently, maybe about the last 8 months, um, started being a guest speaker on a blog show called DoItAllInTheMall.com. And the reason I wanted to start this was just to try to reach black people. How you feel, what's going on with you, what's going on in your life, and young people in particular. What's happening with them during this pandemic? I don't know. I think the media kind of danced around the feelings of black folks, but I think it's left up to black people to try and figure out what impacted us about this pandemic, and then how can we realize a trustful existence together. I mean, let's go back to day one and let's black people figure it out for ourselves, so to speak. So I've been doing this blog for about 8 months, and probably reached 10, 15 different states in the United States. Um, it's really awesome that the young people that I'm talking to, and I'm encouraged. In fact, I'm encouraged by the show because I don't care who calls in. Your comments are always welcome, um, to see where we are as a people. You know, I mean, the emphasis that if we're 44 million black folks in America and we can only boast 1 to 2% of the total wealth of this country, must be is something wrong with that picture. You know, something wrong with that picture. So that's why I wanted to do this show. I want people to call in. Let's talk about it. What are you doing where you live? You know, a lot of people are doing a lot of things, but how do we make that connection? I don't think that we're there yet. I think we're at a window of opportunity that we should be looking at to try and make sure that we can place some emphasis on black people. You know, it can be with our relationship to everybody else, but I think we have right now we're not firing on all cylinders because we're not on the same sheet of music.
So would you say that there is some opportunities for effective communication?
Definitely, definitely, because we it always seems that we always get the information last. We're the last one to get information that's pertinent to everything, and every things to, in my opinion, are not, it's not racially right in your face, but what it is all of the wealth that's going through all of this situation. It causes some racial tension and stuff, but we can achieve that, I think, more if we sit, if we come together. Women, women made this election. Black women, if you want to ask me, I'm just gonna tell you, hell, I'm crazy. Black women made this election. Okay, you guys should be out there. You know, I know that you're taking advantage of it, sweetheart. I know you're taking advantage of it and stuff with your powerful message, but I'm thinking that black women, now's an opportunity and stuff to step forward and stuff. And you are. Black women are stepping forward. Don't get me wrong. Okay, but are you bringing young black women along to be able to, not maybe try and ease their struggles as they get before coming where you coming? You know, it's all connectivity. We're destroying the earth. Climate change, we got people that's coming out of the woodwork now to say that they don't want us to vote. It used to be they didn't care whether they want us to vote or not, but since we voted so much on the other side, and people came out of the woodwork, especially there in Georgia, and then they won the election. Now they don't want you to vote because they're setting up roadblocks. You know, we need to understand that how that works. And if we work in concession with each other everywhere, I think that we will have, just keep creating networks. You're in the business mind, create a business minded network, but who can we bring along as we go? And that's sort of like what my theme is. Too many guns, too many black on black crime. You know, it's about equal as white on white crime, but the emphasis is on blacks. Okay, black men getting killed in the street and stuff. Now that's been happening, but we have some roads to go before we understand that maybe if we can keep our kids out of the street some kind of way, maybe we can, if we know what they're doing, okay, and that still don't give them a reason to hunt our men down and then shoot them or kill them, you know. So it's two sides of every story, but black people just have to know where. I think if we can come to some kind of senses and think about our youth, okay, in the future, I believe that we will be on the right trail. So that's what it's all about to me.
Okay, I love that. So what we know is through effective communication, no matter what your story is. So we're talking about communicating, and what's your story? How are you effectively communicating your story, no matter what your story is? So Sergeant Parks has a story. He has created a platform, or he has become a part of a platform to tell his story, so he can effectively communicate the message of his story. So how are we all doing that? How are you doing that? If you're listening, this is Pay Pro Visa, What's Your Story segment, and we're talking about effective communication. You have a story. We all have a story. So, how are you effectively communicating that story? So, let's introduce our nurse, and she's more than a nurse. Her name is Regina. Regina, could you go ahead? Dad, could you mute your phone? There's some feedback. Thank you, Miss Regina.
Hi. My name is Regina Pittman, and I'm a nurse. Of course, I've been a nurse for about 16 years now. And like Miss LaQuita say, I'm not just a nurse. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I'm a friend. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. Um, so yeah. I had been working in the hospitals, for the last 16 years. And when the pandemic hit, oh my God, mental health had all, I noticed that, mental health had been a thing. And, from everybody, I listened to my patients all day long, tell me their stories, their highs, their lows. And, a lot of them tell me stories that they're not even telling their own family members. So I hear a lot in the hospital room when people are at their worst, when they're sick. So, but this pandemic just brought on a whole nother element. It hit us all. It wasn't just the person losing their job or for whatever reason. Pandemic affected us all. And so what I saw was everybody looking for an outlet. And so I decided to create a journal because I like to write, and that is my outlet. So I decided to create a journal that would help guide, people on an outlet to write, and also try to destigmatize mental health. Because what you hear is, when you can't handle something, they're crazy or they're losing their mind. And sometimes people say it about themselves, but really you're not losing your mind. You're trying to deal. And I want people to know that you're not losing your mind. We all deal with things, and we may deal with it in different ways, but this is just my way I deal. Besides praying and talking to my friends and my family that's supportive, I write. And so I just packaged everything in a journal my way, and hopefully I can get out there and it can help some people.
So Regina, tell me, so you are one of the ones who would be considered essential. Okay. And so during this pandemic where we couldn't go to the doctor with our loved one, because I have some, for those of you who know my story, I have some ailments, some chronic conditions, and I have to go to the doctor a lot. And I went from having a caregiver that was able to go in with me to being stopped at the door to say, no, you can't go in, and having to go in by myself, which is the first time I'd experienced that in over 2 years. So how were you, and we'll talk about your journal in a second, but I want to know, how were you able to effectively communicate through all of this pandemic when there were people who were having some serious issues, emotional issues? How were you able to maintain your, and I'm going to say your poker face, in the midst of somebody who is pouring their heart out to you? There's the anxiety, there's the fear, there's the anger, the hurt, and they couldn't have their family in. So you had to be able to effectively communicate their message and your message at the same time, while kind of keeping your fear, your anxiety, because you were going through the pandemic just like they were. So how were you able to get past that and still be able to do your job and effectively communicate the story of Regina?
I think what people need to understand as nurses, we go to the bedside, and we come as a person, and I can only speak for me. When I went to my patient's bedside, I went to them as, look, if I would communicate to them in a way of, if you were my mom or you were my sister, this is what I would do for you. I'll ask them, what is it that you need right now to help you get through this? Whatever it is you need. If you need me to sit here, and hold your hand, then I'll sit here and hold your hand. But, it's all about connecting with them and with the person that's sitting on the other side of that bed, and making them understand, I'm a person just like you, and I'm just here to take care of you, and I understand. The first thing we would communicate, because we knew it was hard. We knew it was going to cause problems when we shut those doors down, when that elderly mother was laying in that bed and they didn't have a voice. So the hospital I worked for, thank God, we came up with a lot of ways to communicate with family outside. We had iPads. We would schedule visits. We would, talk to them, every step of the way, ask them how much do we need to communicate with you to make this okay. Also letting them know that we are trying to keep everybody safe. We're trying to keep you safe so you won't be sick, and keep your family members safe, because we deal with a lot of the elderly, and they were ones coming in the hospital. A lot of them didn't have COVID, and we were trying to keep them from getting COVID. So we used a lot of tools. Thank God for technology. We used a lot of tools to communicate with them, and so that they can communicate with their families. But I mean, it was really rough because a lot of people didn't understand why we were doing what we were doing, but we just had to stand firm because we knew that we had to keep everybody safe. And as an essential worker, a nurse at the bedside, we have to we go in to protect our patients first and foremost.
Wow, thank you so much. And I want to point out that Regina is in Texas, right?
Right.
So the so I didn't hear a lot about the stories, and you get all you get is what you see on the news, and it and take it with a grain of salt.
Right.
You have to take it with a grain of salt, because if we believe everything that we see on the news, we would be bat crazy for real. And when it first started, when the pandemic first started, I consider myself to be a good communicator. But as good as I think I am, sometimes I ain't that good.
Right.
Okay. So during the midst of it, I wanted to know everything. I wanted to get all the information. So I inundated myself with the news, and I found myself being stressed out, feeling nervous, feeling a little panicky. I couldn't sleep. I already don't sleep that great now, but I couldn't sleep. And I was watching the news. I kept picking up my phone 5, 6, 7 times a day. I wanted to see where are we, what are the numbers. I had it broken down to a science. I had it on my phone, so I had it mapped out. So I wanted to know where we were in my area. Then I wanted to know where we were in my sister's area, in my family's area. Then after I got outside of the city, I got outside of the state, and then I started going to, well, what's the virus like in Yakima, where my dad lives? What's the virus like in this area? And I was so inundated. I was like, I can't keep doing this, because I was in a panic mode, and there was no need for that. So I found that when I stopped doing that, I started feeling better. Now, I did want to know, so instead of going online 5, 6, 7 times a day, I would go on, twice, maybe 3 times a day, and then enough to get the information that I needed, but not to have it to occupy my mind so much where I was not able to be productive. So you're right there on the front line. I wasn't on the front line. So you have children, you have a husband. So as a nurse, how did you come back and effectively communicate to your family that, hey, we're gonna be okay?
Well, I actually I just told my family, I was like everyone else. I don't know, we didn't know what we were dealing with. The pandemic, this virus came out of nowhere. We didn't have a lot of information. So, but as a nurse, you're trained as a medical profession, you're trained to work under pressure. And so this was like anything else. We just had to wait, and as the information came to us, we just act accordingly. What I did tell my family was, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to do my best to keep us safe. I'm going to do my best to do my part when I come in the house to keep us safe. And, until we get more information, we're going to just do what they tell us to do, stay in, social distance, do what they tell us to do until we figure out exactly what we're dealing with, which was, what anybody could do, nurses on the floor, being on the front line, everybody was afraid. We didn't know what we were dealing with, but I tell you, they came to work, and they showed up, and they did what they needed to do, because what we wasn't going to do was let this virus just win and just take out everybody. We're going to try to save as many as we can. And that's just, that's the heart of a nurse. That's what we come to work to do. And that's what we did.
I love that. I love that. So I do. I love that. So that oath, that Hippocratic oath is something serious, isn't it?
Yes, it's very serious. It's what
It's
we
very
come to do.
serious. I love it. I love it. So we're going to come back to Regina in a minute because I want to hear about that journal. So we're going to introduce our other guest, Nicole Scott. So Nicole, tell us about yourself and tell us about how are you effectively communicating your story, your message of Nicole.
Okay. My name is Nicole Scott. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I do some writing and some reading consulting, and my debut novel, The Best in Me, comes out next month. It's the story. It's a story about an out of control teenage girl and her religious grandmother when they're forced to live together due to a family crisis. So it just kind of asks the question: does it really matter what other people think of you if God sees the best in you? So writing is what I've been doing through this pandemic to get through the pandemic, basically.
Awesome. So let's talk about the best of me. And that is so important because people look on the outside appearance, right? They look on the
Right.
outside and they see they so let's use me as an example. They see me and I'm beautiful. And they say, "Oh, she is just so beautiful, and she is just so sweet and so special." But they don't go home with me. They don't know that I might not be so beautiful, But for those of you who are listening, I really am. My attitude is the same. I typically, if you meet me on the street and you follow me home, you'll get the same person. And I'm proud to say, if you ask my children will give you the same response. So I'm the same person. But people look on the outside appearance. So people will look and say, I've had people before, because I have, for those of you who've been following me, I have some chronic medical conditions, and I've had people stop me in the grocery store because I'm a large woman, I'm voluptuous. But I've had people stop me in the store and give me, somebody hand me a card and say, "Hey, I can help you lose weight. You just need to walk." And I'm like, "You don't know my story. So you don't know that walking is not good for me. You don't know that I've had 15 surgeries on my right leg and foot. You don't know that the fact that I'm standing here is a miracle in itself, because or a blessing from God within itself, because I'm not supposed to even be standing here. So you don't know that while you're trying to sell a service to me, that you are in fact insulting me simply because you don't know my story." So people will look on the outside appearance and they'll judge what they see, and they don't even know. But God doesn't do that. God
He
does not.
looks at the heart.
God looks at the heart. So tell me, tell and the storyline that you just gave, that can be true, because I know some rebellious teenagers that have had to go live with grandma in my own family. So give us a little now. Listen, don't tell too much about the book. So if you're listening, you have to purchase the book. So don't tell too much. Just give us a little bit. Give us enough to get interested, and then we'll get to Regina, because I'm interested in hearing about this paint. Go ahead, Nicole.
Well, there's definitely some need of communication between the two of them, because one, of course, is a grandmother, the other one is a teenager. So they're definitely from different generations. They have different priorities, and the communication between them is very bad. So it's up to the grandmother, of course, the adult, to figure out a way to communicate with this teenager that she hasn't seen in a couple of years.
Okay. So what's the name of the book? The Best in Me, right? It's got The Best in Me.
The
Okay.
Best in Me, and it comes out next month, June 20th.
Okay. And I and yours truly is the publisher on this project. So I am truly excited for Nicole and for her debut novel, The Best in Me. So let's go back to you, Miss Regina. Let's talk about your journal. So you said you wanted to you thought your writing is therapeutic. So I am a huge proponent that writing is therapeutic. I wrote my first book back in two and published my first book, Walking Limitations by Other People's Definition, several years ago. I started writing. It became writing is therapeutic. And I am a proponent of writing your story and getting that story out. So Regina, tell us about your journal process.
Well, I'll tell you. Okay, so first, I realized that writing was therapeutic for me. I was angry one day, and I kind of wanted to say some things. So I picked up a tablet and I started writing what I wanted to say, which was not so good, but I wrote it all out. And then I realized that it was out, and I didn't have to tell it to anybody. I wrote it, it was out, and I was able to tear it up and just throw it away. And I felt so much better. So that's when I realized that writing was therapeutic for me. Um, this pandemic just, I mean, everybody, I'm sure everybody can say this pandemic just kind of came through and took us all for a loop. So, that's when I started to pick up my pen and my paper again, and just to try to relieve, because going to work every day was frustrating. Coming home every day was frustrating. During this pandemic, it was crazy. So I had to do something as an outlet, and so I started to write and write some of my feelings out, and then just talking to um, my patients and just the other nurses on the floor. You realize that some people don't have anybody to talk to. I'm fortunate to have friends and family, supportive husband, people I can go to and I can vent and talk to, even though I still journal. But there's a lot of people in the world who they don't have anyone to talk to, or they don't even trust people with their information. So what do you do? And so I realized, I would tell my patients, just write it down. You don't have to tell it to anybody. Just write it down. Get it out of your head. Get it out of your mind. Get it out of your heart, so that you can get up the next day and conquer the world. You just have to get it out. And so many people think that you have to get it out to somebody. It's not necessary, if that's what you want to do, but it's not necessary. You can just write it down and get it out of your head, because clearing your mind will help you.
That's right. And sometimes you have to be careful who you get it out to.
Exactly. So you got your little binder and your little book, you write it down. You really don't have to, you don't need a soul, yourself. It's just self-healing. And so I
So
came
tell
up
us
with
about tell us about the journal. How did you come up with, tell us the name of your journal.
So the name of the journal is Painkiller.
Painkiller. So
And
how did you come up with that name, Painkiller?
well, I'm a nurse. So, people come to the hospital in pain, and they want to kill their pain. And a lot of times it's by, the needle, that medication we shoot in the arm, or that pill we give them to give them that temporary fix of, they just want the pain to stop. And so if you want, my thought was, if you want the pain to stop long term, other than just being in the hospital for a couple of days and being one of our frequent flyers that come back when the pain starts again, you pick up that pen and that paper and you start writing and working through some of that stuff. You got to do the work. And so I call it Painkiller, because I believe that journaling and doing some of the actions can ease some of that pain you're going through now.
So I'm a journaler. I love to journal. So, and I know you love to journal.
Right.
So tell me, what makes your journal different from most? How are you, what's the effective communication in your journal? How are you effectively communicating your message? Because there are a lot of journals, and I have a lot, and I journal, and as you grow, your journaling changes. It changes, and there are times when you have to vent. And I remember some years ago, I had a pseudo name, and I wrote in that journal. And after I grew, and I became a different LaQuita, I went and I was reading that journal and I said, oh Lord, I don't want to die if somebody finds this journal. So I had a barbecue party. So I opened up my barbecue grill because I had grown, okay? Because I was able, just like you, Regina, I had some things that I wanted to get out, but I didn't want to get it out to anybody. So I journaled. And when I found that journal and I thought, oh, wow, what? I was surprised at some of the things that I had to get out. So what I decided to do was I decided to have a little barbecue. So I opened up my barbecue grill and I burnt that journal because that was one of those, like your journal, like when you wrote and you had something serious to say to somebody and you wrote it and you felt better and you tore it up. I did too. It's just that I needed to make sure that nobody would find that journal. So I barbecued it until all the pieces were gone and there were nothing but ashes. And I am secure now that the only person that knows is between me and God, and God forgives us when we ask him to. So tell me, what is so different from your journal? And if you're just joining, I see we have some new people that just joined. If you're just joining, we are talking about effective communication. So this is So What's Your Story? Every month we do a So What's Your Story segment. And we know that 100% of everybody living and dead has a story. But how you communicate that story to your audience is what's important. So we're talking about effective communication, and we have some special guests here, Sergeant James Parks, and we have our author, Nicole Scott, and we have our nurse, Regina Pittman. And so Regina was just getting ready to tell us what makes her painkiller journal different.
So my painkiller journal is different because what I do is I let you in a little bit on my life. This journal is near and dear to me because, I too struggle with a little of the, what mental, what they call the mental illness. No, we all have something that we struggle with. And so, although I might get up every day, you might see this beautiful smile, there's some things that hurt me. There's some things that I struggle with. There's some things that I've dealt with in my life that I had to work through. So, I thought it was important that I open up and let my readers know that, hey, I deal with these things as well. I deal with some things. So my journal, I tell my story first, and then I ask you to tell yours.
Absolutely.
I let you in, and I let you in, on me, so that you will know that I'm not just a pretty face or this nurse that gets up and go to work, and this mom that has it all together. No, I deal with life struggles as well. And no, you're not crazy. None of us are crazy. We are humans. We are loving people. We deal. And so it's important for, moms and nurses and just everybody. It's just important for me to let them know that, hey, I'm a human and I deal with these things as well. So let me tell you what happened to me. So now you can tell me yours.
So I love that. And I'm going to tell you, Regina, just like I told Nicole, don't give it all away.
Our
Just enough to get to make us curious and want to purchase. So can you give me, without giving away the whole book, can you give me an example of one of the sections, how you start out? Just so walk me through one of the sections in your journal.
Okay. So, well, I have a section called depression, and so I guess I talk about a moment where I was depressed. I talk about what was happening in my life at that moment, what I was going through, and how I came out of it. And then I give some what we call some call. I ask some questions, kind of give you an opportunity to write and tell me your story. And then I give some call to actions, some things that I have done that helped me to get through those areas, like the depression. I have some calls to actions that help me get through that depression in my life that I think will help, anyone.
So I love that. So we all have a story, and we all have to communicate that effectively, or or our audience will miss it. No matter who it is or who our audience is, they'll miss what we're trying to relay. And I always tell people, when you're trying to communicate your story, um, tell your story. Tell your story. So what's my story? Again, I say it till the cows come home. I believe it. Everybody, and everybody on this call has a story. Everybody, 100% of everybody living or dead has a story, but my story might be different than your story. So Regina and Nicole and James and Lady Real Estate and Catrice Green, we all have stories. Now, we may have all experienced depression at some point in time, but how we came out of it might be different. Some of us might be just coming out of it. Some of us might still be in it. I know this pandemic has caused there to be an escalation in the number of suicides and the number of depressions and mental health issues. I know that has happened. So, and unfortunately, just like Regina said, there are a lot of people who feel like they don't have an outlet. They don't have anybody to talk to. So that's why these segments are really important. So what's your story? So we do these every month so that we give people the opportunity to know that you can write your story. You can write your story from whatever standpoint. If it's effective communication, how do I write my story and effectively communicate it? How do I start my story? What are the walking limitations within my story? So we all have a story, and how we effectively communicate that is important so that we can connect to those people, because there is always somebody waiting on the other side of your story. So Regina's story is her journal, Painkiller. Nicole's story is The Best in Me. And I love that, Nicole, because we don't know, nobody knows what's in our heart. Sometimes it can come out through our behavior, but how many of y'all know that sometimes we can pretend? We can be the great pretender, and we can let people see who we want them to see. But God knows what's the best of me. So Nicole, thank you so much. Regina, don't go anywhere. I'm coming back to you. So Nicole, I want to know, what was the motivation to you writing your story and effectively communicating that story in the way that you have?
Well, I was inspired to write because I saw some kids acting bad or whatever. So I was trying to figure out, why are they acting like this? So I just basically just went from there. They were acting out. That was their way of communicating, but of course they weren't communicating effectively. But so I basically just tried to think like a teenager and try to come up with why they could be acting like that. Problems at home, problems at school, just and a lot of times teenagers don't feel like they're heard. Sometimes they think they know it all, and parents and grandparents don't know anything. They're old, that's what they think about us. We're old or whatever. So, but sometimes they don't feel like they're heard, so they act out. Mm-hmm. And that's their way of, sometimes bad attention, I guess, is better than no attention at all. So that's what the motivation was, just to kind of give a voice, to teenagers, give a voice to grandparents, who have to raise the grandchildren when the parents aren't around for whatever reason. So like I said, there was a generation gap there. So they had to learn how to communicate. But that's what inspired me to write it. Just seeing some kids acting up and making up the reasons why they were possibly acting like that.
So if you had to, so we're broadcast to the world, where everybody's listening to this. So if you had to give a piece of advice to a teenager that's acting out, and to the public that's looking at them, because we're judgmental. We are
Mhm.
judgmental people. We will see somebody acting out and say, you know what, if that was my child, you know, what we would do, what we should do, what we could do, without even knowing what the actual what the situation is. We're judging from an outward appearance, you know, like the guy that gave me his card and told me to go walk, you know. So what advice would you give to I guess this is a twofold question. What advice would you give to the teenager or the young person that's acting out and don't know how to effectively communicate what's going on, and to you know, John P. LaQuita, who is looking and judging from an outward
Okay.
appearance?
Right. Well, definitely the teenager needs to find somebody they trust and find somebody who they can talk to. And, you know, constantly getting into trouble, you're just hurting yourself. You know, you might think you're hurting your parents or whatever, but you're hurting yourself. So you have to, and of course, I think a lot of times teenagers, they don't really think far into the future. They just think about, you know, today. So they don't think about the long-term consequences of what they might be doing. But they definitely need to try to talk to somebody that they can trust. And you know, get some help or whatever. Learn how to, you know, communicate. And as far as people judging, well, we were all teenagers at one point in time, so we've all been through it. We may have forgot what it was like, and the times are different now or whatever. But we were all teenagers at one time, so you got to just, you know, stop being judgmental and help. You know, if you see somebody that you can help them, and stop judging.
Say something, see something, say something.
Right.
I get you. I get you. Thank you so much, Nicole. So I don't know, Sergeant Parks, are you still there?
Yeah, it's been liking bitter.
So what piece of, so you talked about your platform for getting the message out and for bringing awareness and being an activist for Black folk, and what we should and should not should what we should be doing. So we're in agreement that we do some things that we should not be doing, and when it's time to do something, we don't do enough. So what was your motivation for getting started on your platform, and not just your platform that you've been doing for 8 months, but you've been an activist for a very long time. So what was the motivation? Did you just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be an activist, or did you see so much, and you know, maybe when you were in the military and you just got tired of seeing something and not saying something?
Wow, that's a whole mouthful.
I know, right?
Well, you know, actually, I guess it started when I was young, real young, and growing up with my grandmama and my aunts, because my mama, well, she was a rock star protege, so to speak. But yeah, I see just how caring my grandparents were, and they, like everybody in the community, little small town called College Park, everybody looked up to my grandparents because my grandparents, if you can imagine a little town in the South where that you got a white police force and it's about maybe a quarter of a mile from where you live, if you can imagine that, you know. But my grandparents were very prominent, and they were always helping our people. Always, everybody would come to them. My grandma, I tell you a little secret. My grandma was a bootlegger. You know, she used to sell boot. Well, that's the way she made in. She was a carpenter, a bootlegger, man. She was a gardener, and I just sit there at a very early age and just soak it in, soak everything in. You know, my background is feminist, even though my life is not so well. That's another whole story that my daughter trying to get me to write. But anyway, yeah, it all happens a long time ago. So you gotta be um, you got to be heads up because dealing with our people sometimes could be the most complicated thing that you can ever try to do. You know, you can go and like I do a lot of coaching. I take kids all over the United States and everywhere. You know, I want them to be educated on what they're doing. I want them to see other parts of life so that when they come back here in Yakima, they can put it together. You know, um, it's a whole bunch of things. I'm active and stuff in the city government because two sections of this town out of 7 districts is the worst two sections, and I happen to live in one. God forbid, is the worst, and that's because you got people of color. You know, 90% of Hispanic people living in there, so the city think they don't have to do nothing about it. You know, we own our own property, you know, so but in this particular section, if we don't complain about what's taking place, you know, so I'm active there. I want my voice to be heard because I know I make a difference, you know. And if it's not right at the end of the day, I get the facts and then I'll go to the next city council meeting or the next county commissioners meeting, you know. I joined the NAACP and I'm real effective in the NAACP right now. I'm doing legal redress of getting the complaints. 4 years of the Trump administration has diminished all all equality of people on the lowest pole trying to get some kind of justice. You know, if you got something that happened on your job, then there's some roadblocks and stuff, and just because you're who you work for got the power that you won't be heard. You know, it's a whole lot of things and stuff that's happening, and I want to make sure that I can do what I can do. I use my voice. You know, I get to know everybody and stuff and try and say, now it's not my way or the highway. You know, listen to the facts of what's going on.
All
Listen to
right.
the facts and then you know, keep the facts in the eye of the power that be. That's what I always say.
Just the facts, sir. Just the facts. I like that. So thank you so much, Sergeant Parks. It feels funny saying Sergeant Parks because that's my dad. So, but thank you so much, Sergeant Parks. I like what you said. You have a voice, so we have a voice, and our voice is a part of our story. And effectively communicating that means that you have people who are going to listen to you and take you seriously, or who are going to count you out and dismiss you. So being able to effectively communicate your story, it makes a lot of difference. So we have Sergeant Parks who effectively communicates his message through his story in a verbal way with his podcast and with all those things and being an activist. And then we have Regina who is a nurse and she effectively communicates her story through what she does as a nurse, and then through her journal that's coming out soon with Painkiller. And we have Miss Nicole Scott who has effectively communicated her story. And I love it. I love what both of you have done because here's the story. Here's Regina's story, Painkiller. How can I help myself? How can I get over some of the things that I'm going through? And then here's Nicole's story. It's about a troubled teenager who's rebellious, but in the midst of that story, here is the how to. What can I do? How can I not be so judgmental? And how can, if I'm seeing something, why not say something? How can I be of assistance instead of pulling this person down or pulling this teenager, not even just a teenager, but people, period. So what message am I communicating, and am I communicating that message effectively? So I want to ask Miss Catrice is on the call. Did you want to add something, Catrice? You're muted. Okay. Okay, that's fine. If you
Oh
want
my
to,
gosh, I'm sorry. Hi, sorry about that. My phone, my phone was in my bag and I had my earbuds on. I just love this conversation and I thank you for having this platform. I just wanted to add that I love this, the part where everyone has different platforms. Regina with her journal, the sergeant with his podcast, and then the other young lady, I think she has a book. And I just love the fact that we come together with on from different platforms to get all of these different topics heard. So I just want to thank you for this conversation. And that's what I had to add. So thank you for that.
well, thank you so
Sorry.
much for joining us today. So we do you want to, Catrice, did you want to share with us your story? How do you, what platform do you have, or what's your story? And again, your story doesn't have to be a book. We're talking about what's your story and how to communicate that story effectively. So I would be interested, if you want to share, you don't have to, but what's your story? How do you effectively communicate your message, the message of Catrice?
Well, thank you so much for asking. I just want to preface this by Regina is one of my dear close friends, and I was on here to support her.
Awesome.
But my story is I come from an entrepreneurial background, and I've been an entrepreneur since the early 2000s. Some time ago, I took on a corporate role, and as of June 8th of last year, I decided to leave that role and go back into entrepreneurship. So my platform right now is getting the message through my Facebook Lives that I have, that I go live every 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I just have various topics while I go live. And then I'm always pushing, my entrepreneurial, whatever I'm pushing that day, because I do hair, makeup. I'm also a part of the global team at Andy's, the clipper company. I am also a stylist for for some top, I don't know, celebrity status people. So I do a lot, and I get my story out through my Facebook Lives 3 times a week. And so thank you for allowing me to say that.
Awesome. And if you don't mind, Catrice, please feel free, and everybody, please put your contact information in the chat. And we're all about connecting people. I love connecting resources. I love connecting people because this is a whole big old world. And there is enough at the table for everybody in this big old world. So put your contact information in the chat, connect with each other, support each other. Nicole's book is coming out in June. Regina's book should be coming out at the same time in June. So support each other. Catrice, whatever you're doing, we want to support you. James Parks has a show that comes on Thursdays. He has one coming this Thursday, the 20th, and it is Keeping It Real with Sergeant Parks. And you can find him on it's Doing It All in the Mall. So we'll share that information. So if you have a chance to log into his show, it's usually at 6:00 Eastern time, and you can make comments and render your voice. You use your voice. A lot of times we use our voice for, there are a lot of people who use their voices to tear down, but use your voice to make a difference. So I am so excited about effective communication. I love connecting people and I love sharing the message. So what's your story? When you're writing your story, how do I communicate that story effectively? So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna share my screen again with you guys. So we just talked about who's your audience. So we know that Sergeant Parks, he has an audience. Regina has a different audience, and Nicole has a different audience. And then we see Catrice has yet another audience. So we all have a story, and the world is so big that we can all of us can have a story, and all of us can have a different audience. So who's your audience? Make sure when you communicate your story effectively, then who you're talking to. So if I'm talking about my walking limitations and my situation of medical childhood trauma and going into the hospital when I was 4 years old and having my tonsils removed, and in the process of having my tonsils removed, being given a shot of penicillin in my sciatic nerve that poisoned the bone in my leg, and it left me crippled for life. So I had 15 surgeries on my right leg and foot. So when I'm talking to, who's my audience? So I deal with chronic pain every day. So I have an audience of people who might be dealing with chronic pain and have no idea how they're going to move on. So that's my audience. I'm connecting people, because if I can go through 47 years of chronic pain, then surely I can help you overcome that pain and outrun your walking limitations. Regina, your platform with the painkiller. And for those who don't know, and if you just joining, I am the publisher on that project. And I told Regina just the other day, I said, girl, I can't wait for this book to come out, because I'll be buying it myself. I am so excited. And yes, I do purchase my author's books. I really do. I am so excited because I journal, and having a guided journal that can help me through how to get through this process, and knowing that there's somebody who has been through it, I can get through it too. So I appreciate that. So know who your audience is. And then I always say, start strong, finish strong. Catrice, I so like your energy. You know, you came on, and I know your phone was in your purse and you was digging, and I know I put you on the spot, but girl, you came through. And you were like, okay, I'm sorry. I was on this, my phone was in my purse, but you came through, and I appreciate that. So start strong and finish strong. It's your story. You know, I had somebody to tell me one time, I don't see how people can tell their business like that. And I'm like, what do you mean? So I just don't agree with that. I said, well, just because you don't agree with someone telling their story or how they tell their story does not negate the fact that they should tell their story. It's their story. So I say, tell your story. And again, your story is your story. You get out your message how you want to get out your message. Regina, your message is painkiller. Nicole, your message is the best in me. My message is walking limitation. I have a lady, she does gardening, and that's how she gets through her rough time. That's how she breathes. And it's called Sweet Potatoes in a Bucket. And if it's a journal or a cookbook or words of inspiration and motivation, start strong, finish strong, whatever your story might be. And keep it concise, or what I like to call kiss it. Keep it simple, silly. Sometimes we overthink, and when we start to overthink, it starts to become, it's this small, but when we start to overthink, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where it's so big that it's overwhelming. And so don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. Keep it concise, or kiss it. Keep it simple, silly. Don't overthink it. That just frustrates you. Okay. And then highlight the emotional element. So touch the heart of the audience. So back in February, we did So What's Your Story? And it was getting to your heart-centered story. So when we write our story and we communicate that story effectively, then we're getting to the heart of the story. So we know that we're touching the reader. When I read what Regina submitted for her journal, I was like, wow. It was like, I was just blown away. And I was like, this is awesome. Because why did I say that? Not because I'm the publisher and I'm blowing smoke up her behind. No, I'm not doing that. I don't do that. I was serious. I was like, this is good stuff, because I connected with it. And I know that the readers would, and the people who are following this guided journal would connect with it as well. My dad does the So Keeping It Real with Sergeant Parks, and I'm not going to say that I agree with everything, and I know he'll probably fall out of his chair when he hears that I don't agree with everything that he says. But I like the fact that he knows that I have my own mind, and I have my own way of doing things. And I think he appreciates the fact that I don't agree with everything and I don't have to. So there are going to be people who are not going to agree with your story, but it's your story. So as long as you're communicating it effectively, tell your story. I love Nicole. When I read, my assistant and I were reading her book, and we were like, I was like, okay, well, this is a new, this is a segment. What's the next story? There is a part 2 coming up for here. And I was like, so, and then I called and I said, okay, so what happened to this person? So wait a minute, what happened? So I did that, not because, again, I was blowing smoke. I connected with her because she wrote through the heart. She wrote her heart-centered story. So when you're communicating your story effectively, then you communicate it from your heart. Tell your story, be concise, be honest with your story. Now, if it's a fiction, that's fine. But even in a fiction, you can still see the heart of the writer. The reader can see the heart of the writer, or the passion. It's very hard to write about something you're not passionate about. So, Regina, I would think it would be difficult for you to write this guided journal if you were pretending, because some of the things that you wrote was like, no, you didn't make this up. You can't make this up. And Nicole, when I read your story, the way that you were effective in the communication of that story, I said, I know this has happened. It's a fiction, but I could read it and say, okay, you know what? This is something that has happened or could have happened, because real life happens, right? So communicating your story effectively connects with your audience, and it helps them to overcome whatever issues they're going through. Okay. So I want to ask you guys. So Regina, I'll start with you. So Regina, if what message in your journal, so when your journal comes out and everybody has purchased and it's on sale and people are buying and you're receiving the feedback, what do you want? What's the takeaway you want people to get from your journal?
Well, first I want them to know that, just because you might be having a tough time and you're dealing with some mental health, what they say is mental health issues, it's okay. It's normal. I'm trying to normalize it. No, I don't think you should be running around, doing crazy things, but it is normal to not feel like yourself. It is normal to feel like, you know what, am I like, I'm sad or I'm frustrated. It's normal to feel like that and to sit in that. But I also want you to know that you can heal yourself. There's self-healing. You don't need a pill. You don't need that injection in your arm. You don't need that, that alcohol all the time. And I'm not saying that, it doesn't, so if you take a little, a drink here or there that you don't feel better, I get that, because, I'm human and I've been there too. But I do want people to understand that there is self-healing in writing, and that you can help yourself come out of that dark place that you're sitting in. If you just pick up that pen and paper and you write about it and express yourself, because it's just another form of expression, and that there are tools that you can use to help yourself come out of that, so that you're not stuck with that drink, or you're not stuck with that pill, you're not stuck with that needle in your arm. You can self-heal, but you have to do the work. And my guided journal just shows you step by step how you do the work. I tell you a story, now you tell me yours, and then you do a little work. So, and you can't miss that part. And so I just want you to know that if you do the work, and we all do the work, that we can come out on the other side and feel better.
I love it. I love it. And the journal, it's you tell me your secret, I tell you mine. And it's a personal journal. It isn't one that you got to put on Zoom or you got to put on Facebook. You take it and you put it in your purse or you lock it up in your cabinet. It's your personal journal. And I've been there. I appreciate that. And you're right. Writing is therapeutic. Communicating effectively means communicating with yourself. You
Right.
also have to communicate, be true to yourself. Before I can be honest and true to you, I need to start with me.
Right. That's where it starts. That's where depression starts. It starts in your head. You sit there and you think about all these things, and then you tell yourself all these things that you think to be true, and it may not necessarily be true, but that's how it starts. So if it starts in your mind, then you have to heal in the mind. And so the mind is a powerful thing. And, just being a nurse, and I keep coming back to that because, I've touched thousands and thousands of people in my work in over the 16 years. And the one common thing I see is that, everybody's looking for something to just make the pain stop, just want the pain to stop. When really, you can handle the pain. You just got to sit in it. And sometimes it just takes for you to sit in it for a few minutes. Just sit in it and feel it and know that it's not going to kill you. But then you figure out what to do with that pain and how to come out of that pain. You're so much stronger because now oh, I felt that and I know what that feels like. And so then you can help somebody else come out of that pain. So the worst thing you can do is to try to numb it and try to cover it and hide it. And so my journal helps you sit in that pain and then come out on the other side.
Girl, you preaching to the choir, girl. A couple years, well, in November, December of 2019 and January and February of 2020, I was at the Mayo Clinic. And my last visit to the Mayo Clinic, the doctor said to me, he said, Miss Parks, you are not dying, but you are suffering. Mm-hmm. Every ailment, every condition, every condition you have is chronic, and it has its own pain source. So if you're in pain, you should be. And he drew a map for me of what's this. And I made the decision, and I'm stubborn. People who know me don't think I'm stubborn, but I'm a little bit stubborn, and I do more than I should. Sometimes I go more. I move around when I should be sitting down. I'm piddling when I shouldn't be piddling, and I'm stubborn. But my stubbornness has caused me to. It has caused me to go further than I probably could have gone if I decided not to be. It has also cost me too. But when you have pain, you have a choice to go into. I'm gonna succumb to it, and I'm gonna let it dictate me, or I'm gonna dictate it. And so I truly know what pain is. 47 years of my life, every single day, but it starts with a choice to do something. So focusing on something other than the pain is what helps you get past the pain. It doesn't mean that the pain is going to go away. It doesn't mean that I'm sitting here talking to you and I don't have any pain. It just means that my focus is what I'm doing right now, and that makes the pain not be relevant at the moment. And doing that, you get through it, you get past it. So I'm working with a group home, and we're talking about effective communication, and this group home is in Minnesota, and it's right up there. So Minnesota will forever be known by George Floyd, right? So these young people they come through this group home. It's predominantly they're the clientele. They're predominantly Black, and the people that service them are 90. I'm going to say 100% white, because I didn't see anybody else. And when I met with them to work on this project, I was on a Zoom call, and on that Zoom call, as the faces were coming up, all of the faces didn't look like me, but all of the clients looked like me. And as I was sitting there and I saw those faces and they were looking, and the looks on their faces was, help us to help them. How can we help them? So I'm working on a project so that they can tell their stories. These young people can tell their stories. And I said to them, I know that they are going through, and I mean the staff, they're going through trying to figure it out, because they're trying to service people who I know, they're teenagers, Nicole. They're saying, you don't know what I'm going through. You don't understand what's going on with me. You don't know what my situation is. You white, I'm Black, so you don't know. How can you help me? So, and they're sitting there saying, I'm here. I want to. And when I tell you these teenagers, give them what for? I mean, in the words, in their actions, in their language, and they're punching bags and they're right there and they're accepting these bruises. So, it's like all white people not bad, y'all. And there's like all Black people not good. I'm not here advocating that, but they're communicating this, and I'm sitting here. And so they start sending these stories. And the first story that I received says learning from suicide. And I'm like, what? And it's a teenager who talks about learning from suicide, where that teenager started the process, took pills, Regina, start cutting themselves, Nicole. And after they'd done that, they said, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. So all they could do, and this is all in the writing now, all they could do was muster up the strength to call 911. But the way that they lived, where they lived, they couldn't just get in because they had to be let in, right? And this child, female, said it was all she could do, bleeding, and she had taken a bottle of pills, was to get herself down the stairs. And when she got down the stairs and the door opened, she fell into the arms of the police because they were there. She fell into the arms of the police. She woke up in the hospital with all these people surrounding her. And she said, people do love me. So in her writing, she said, I know. The last thing she said was, I have to keep my pencil and my notepad with me because it's my therapy. Yeah. So you cannot tell me that writing is not therapeutic. Effectively communicating it is therapeutic. Everybody has a story. In order to heal, in order to get past the pain, in order to get past wanting to take a pill, and trust me, listen, I have lupus, RA, I got them. My desk right now, this is the desk that I'm working at, and I got prescriptions sitting here that I have to take, but I don't have to take the pain medicine because I find different ways to deal with it. And that's my story. And I'm not saying that people who need it, I'm not telling you not to take it. I'm just telling you that there is a different way. That's what Regina's saying. There's a different way. Nicole, what's your same question I asked Regina? I've said so much, child, I forgot the question. So
I forgot the question too.
What's the takeaway?
So, but what do you want? This is really good. This is really good. I love the segment, and I love the fact that we have to effectively communicate our stories. We have to communicate our stories no matter what they are. So Nicole, what's the takeaway? What do you want your audience to get? What do you want your readers to take away from your story, The Best in Me?
Okay. Well, it's definitely a story of faith. It's a story of redemption. It's a story of second chances. So, but I really, back to what you said, I really love the fact that she figured out that writing was her escape. Because sometimes, you don't figure out what your escape is or what the cure is until you're a lot older. So I love the fact that she figured it out while she was a teenager, and and that's good. So
yes,
but yeah, it's a story of redemption. Like I said, faith and second chances, and like I said, it's a generation gap, and they have to learn to communicate, effective communication. And it's definitely hard in this novel. It's definitely hard. They different worlds, totally different worlds, but they make it work.
Listen, y'all got to get it. Painkiller and The Best in Me. Y'all have to get it. James Parks, if you're still there, what's the takeaway? What do you want your audience to take away from your story?
Well, that everybody can do this. This is not no heroic effort. You can do something. Okay, everybody can do. You can do something toward that. A lot of times we look in terms of, wow, that's big. I don't think I want to get involved in that. Just what efforts are you putting to it? Is there some kid that you can mentor? Is there some old people that you know that you could help? It's all good. It's all good. Just get out there and do something, and quit complaining. If you don't vote, guess what? It ain't gonna count. If you don't want to get COVID, get the shot. You know, if you don't want COVID, get the shot. You might not get it anyway, but people of color really don't have all of these luxuriously habit, or how you call it. We don't have the luxury of not being informed and then how to take care of ourselves. Because if you look back on the history of this virus in the short term, it's been killing mostly people of color. I have people saying, "Oh, I'm not going to take the shot." Okay, well, that's fine. And then what is, who are you working with? It don't have to be other black people in your community. It could be other networks of people in your community, because right now the stigma really is on all people of color because there's too many of us in the United States and stuff, and then we sucking up resources. Okay, that's a general opinion of some people, So just get out there and do something. And if you're not gonna do something and stuff, then quit complaining. And hey, I really enjoyed this, sweetheart. And yeah, me and my daughter, we don't always agree on everything. I'll tell you that for me. I mean, sometimes it's just like a knockdown, drag out, but at the end of the day, we understand. And at the end of the day, we can at least talk about it. Okay? And I love you. And thanks for the show, and invite me on again. But I'm still not I'm still in stage 2 of putting my story on paper.
Right. Your daughter is a publisher and you still at stage 2.
Yeah.
Okay. That's one of the things that we have knockdown dragouts about. Like,
Well,
come
it's
on,
still
Esther.
I'm gonna bring it to you when I'm done.
Okay. All right.
I love everybody. Hey, you guys, keep it real.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. So if you are tuning in, if you've tuned in, we are talking about effective communication. Dad, can you mute your phone, please? There's feedback. Thank you. But we are talking about effective communication. And so, what's your story? This has been a wonderful, wonderful discussion. I am so excited for what the future holds. Nicole Scott, thank you so much for being a guest coming on. And Regina, thank you so much. And I want to, if do you guys have any final words? And I don't know if Kevin, before we wrap up, if Kevin has anything that he wants to add. He's been listening in the background.
Well, thank you so much, Sister Parks. How y'all doing? Y'all give yourself a hand for being here on the network. Y'all give yourself a hand because y'all so beautiful and brilliant and smart. And I just thank God for you. I just want you to know that we're praying for you on this end. Our network is praying for you. We're just so proud of you and your families. And we're going to continue to pray for you, Sister, all the sisters that are on the network, Sister Regina, Sister LaQuita Parks, Sister Green, Sister Nicole, everybody that's been on, Brother Parks. We thank you so much for being and supportive of Sister Parks today. LaQuita Park doing a great job. And we're just excited about your future. And we want you to keep going and never give up. Back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, Nicole, do you have any final thoughts? Give us some final thoughts.
Well, I definitely want to say thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I had a great time. I'm looking forward to reading Regina's book. I'm looking forward to my book coming out next month. I'm very excited. And I'm very excited about everything Pay-Per-View has going on. Wonderful publishing company. I'm glad to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. Regina, any closing words?
Well, I definitely want to thank you, Miss LaQuita. You have been instrumental in me. You just don't know in writing this. You were quite an inspiration. You helped put that fire under me. So she's a great publisher. If anybody want to write their book. But yeah, I'm excited about all there is to come, Miss Nicole. I can't wait to read your book because I have some teenagers up in here. I need to learn how to communicate. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, thanks for having me and supporting me. And yeah, I'm excited about everything that's to come.
Absolutely. Thank you. Miss Catrice, do you have anything you want to say before we wrap up?
Well, I'm glad that I took my phone out of my pocketbook first and foremost, because I said, I think she may call on me to have some closing remarks. So thank you for that. I just want to thank you in advance for pushing my friend Regina to her greatness even more, because I see the confidence come out in her, telling her story, having a voice, effectively communicating and taking those skills into her personal life. And because I'm a part of her personal life. So I just want to thank you for that. And I look forward to even connecting with you in the future. This seems like a great platform to me, for me, and maybe we will have some, you can help me out in writing a book.
Absolutely.
So I just want to
Absolutely.
thank you so much for this platform. So thank you for the time, and thank Regina for, connecting.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you so much. This has been an awesome episode or a segment of So What's Your Story? We are here every month, the third Wednesday of every month at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And we are talking about So What's Your Story? So it's a monthly series on how to write your story. And today we were talking about effective communication. We had our special guest, a retired Army Sergeant, James Parks, the nurse, more than a nurse, Miss Regina Pittman, and the writer, more than a writer, Miss Nicole Scott. Don't forget to put your contact information in the chat so you guys can connect with each other. Catrice, if you can put your information in the chat, that would be wonderful. I would love to connect with you. So PayProV Publishing, we help you take your story from a thought to a realization. PayProV means pain, progress, victory. Pain, progress, victory, because without pain, there is no progress. And without progress, there can be no victory. So we know that everybody has a story. We talked about this for the last hour and 90 minutes. We've talked about your story. We've talked about effective communication. So when you have a story, and you don't know how to tell your story, reach out to PayProV Publishing. You can find us at payprov.com, PayProV Publishing, payprovpublishing.com. Reach out to us. We can help you take your story from a thought to a realization. If you have a story and don't know how to start, we can help you. If you have a story and you're ready to get it published, then we make it easy for you. We hold your hand through the process, and we can even help you on a ghostwriting project. We can do that for you. So PayProV Publishing, this has been so wonderful. I thank you so much. I'm excited for Nicole and for Regina in their projects that are coming out, and for everything else that's going on. Connect with them on social media. They are both on Facebook and Instagram. You can connect with LaQuita Parks, PayProV Publishing, on all things social media. LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We there. Email, the whole shebang. And we are so excited. So some things that are coming up with PayProV Publishing on tomorrow. We will be traveling to Cordell, Georgia for Miss Mother Shazer. She is our centenarian, a book about her life called Living Well, How to Live Well Past 100 Years. She is 108 years young, and I am excited that we will be traveling to her book signing. So if you guys are in the area, please stop by the Cordell Crisp Chamber of Commerce and meet the centenarian, 108-year-old Mother Shazer. Coming up on June 12th, I will be teaching a So What's Your Story workshop with Piedmont Women's Heart. So follow me on social media and connect with me, and let me help you tell your story. So it has been a plump, pleasing pleasure, better than a triple decker peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So what's your story? Thank you, guys.
Amen. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, all around the world, this has been Effective Communication, ladies and gentlemen. So what's your story? A monthly series with LaQuita Parks and our wonderful guests. Thank you so much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to share this out on your networks. Ladies and gentlemen, put this out on your network so everybody else can see these beautiful faces, these brilliant women and men that are on the network that are sharing with you each and every month on the network. Thank you so much. Remember to always get your effective communication in action with LaQuita Parks, and always go to Pay Pro V. That's payprovpublishing.com. Want you guys to blow that website up, payprovpublishing.com, and we'll be very, very grateful that you share this out as well. All right, everybody, have a great rest of the day. And remember to always out love, out forgive, and out serve each other. And remember, Jesus is Lord. God bless you, everybody. Take care now. Bye-bye.